Speaker, I rise again on this occasion to present for the second reading the bill entitled the Appropriation 2018 Bill 2017. This being a money bill, I am pleased to advise that the necessary fiat of His Excellency the Governor General has been sought and has been graciously received. Mr. Speaker, in the laying of the draft estimates, I gave an outline of the expenditure of just over $700 million that are being provided for in those estimates, and which the appropriation bill seek in large measure now to have further support through the debates. In reading the budget and in delivering the budget, we hope to add further clarity to the proposal, the context in which the appropriation bill, the Appropriation Act 2018-2017, is now being delivered. I want to start, Mr. Speaker, on a note of appreciation to the staff and to the entire government for the work that went into the preparation of the 2018 budget estimates, which will be the subject of debate. I want especially to thank the senior officers in the Ministry of Finance, in the Prime Minister's office, the Cabinet Secretary in particular, for the very many long hours that went into the production of the final document. We use all of our weekend days, Saturdays, Sundays, to try to get this document produced, and then depended upon the staff of the printery to come in and to go beyond midnight to ensure the production of the document, which is now available. I want to thank them all for their service in this regard, and hope that the document is of a high standard. If there are any human errors, I hope that none would begrudge them the tribute I have given, and in any event, those errors would not be so egregious as to deny them their double salary come the 15th of December. Mr. Speaker, my country, St. Kitts and Nevis, is a blessed nation under God. And as we meet today to consider the budget and the major policies and plans for 2018, we must give thanks to Almighty God for sparing our federation from the destructive tropical cyclones that caused widespread devastation a few months ago. Our own preliminary estimates indicate that the public sector sustained damage to the tune of $150 million across our two beautiful islands of St. Kitts and Nevis. We are thankful that we did not suffer any loss of precious lives, and we were spared the massive destruction that was inflicted on some of our neighboring islands. Even as we grapple with our own needs here in St. Kitts and Nevis, my government took note of the greater pain and suffering of our brothers and sisters who suffered much more devastating blows from Hurricanes Irma and Maria than we did. We believe in the biblical advice of being your brother's keeper, and therefore, to the best of our ability, we quickly offered monetary and in-kind assistance to our neighbors that were seriously impacted. The record would show we were among the most generous of those contributing to the neighboring islands. We gave $1 million to the Commonwealth of Dominica, $400,000 to Anguilla, $400,000 to Antigua and Barbuda, $500,000 to the British Virgin Islands, and we committed $200,000 to St. Martin, Dutch and French. We were also encouraged by the generosity of the various local businesses and private citizens who came together to give support to our less fortunate neighboring islands. We wish them every success in their continuing recovery efforts. Hurricanes Irma and Maria were a stark illustration of the force of nature and demonstrated the fact that climatic changes can create an accommodating environment for the development of what can only be described as superstorms. We here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis must remain vigilant and adhere to the standards established for the protection of life and property. And I strongly encourage the general public to cooperate more and better with the relevant authorities in the enforcement of building codes and to follow the good advice of the officers of the Department of Physical Planning and, of course, NEMA. The harsh reality is that, notwithstanding our small role as a greenhouse emitter, small island developing states like St. Kitts and Nevis will continue to bear the brunt of the resultant effects of climate change, such as temperature rise, drought conditions, and sea level rise. Such effects cannot be decoupled from economic growth and development, and therefore we must take a holistic approach to build resilience in our economies and infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, based on our experiences here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we are all well aware of how difficult it is to return a country to a state of normalcy and resume a track record of achieving growth and development after the impact of a natural disaster. That is why we moved quickly to begin repairs and reconstruction work at our main hospital in Basseterre, our schools, the Old Road Bay, the Frigate Bay Development Corporation, and the police training complex, to name but a few. We also provided duty-free concessions and materials for all properties damaged by the hurricanes. Care and concern for people are at the center of my government's development agenda, and that is why we have chosen the theme for the 2018 budget, Putting People First in the Pursuit of Sustainable Development. All of the major initiatives sponsored and implemented by my Team Unity administration over the last 34 months have been centered on making life better for our people. Many around the region marveled at the long list of accomplishments of my administration in less than 3 years. No other government has done as much as we have in so short a time. Every citizen of this federation can count on my administration to continue to do what is best to support the growth and development of our people and our nation. As we consider the theme for the 2018 budget, we were not only concerned with environmental sustainability of our federation and our ability to mitigate and adapt to climate change, but most importantly, how these and other related issues are impacting the lives and the livelihood of our beloved people. One of the fundamental issues that we were and are determined to address in 2018 is the modernization of our education and training system to prepare our people for a modern work environment. We are committed to assist our micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises even further. And in the interest of our people, we will advance improvements in social development, health services, access to good quality, affordable housing, and the formulation and update of supporting policies and legislation to facilitate reform actions in a number of areas. In this regard, the government is taking a strategic approach to reduce the vulnerabilities faced by our nation. This, of course, is evidenced by the mix of investment in critical areas and the implementation of sound policies supported by appropriate legislation. In 2018, we will continue to build on the solid foundation which we have already established to develop the following. 1, a dynamic climate change policy accompanied by a relevant climate change adaptation strategy. 2, a new national housing policy. 3, an updated land use policy. 4, a national qualification register. 5, a special needs policy. And 6, a plan of action for non-communicable diseases. In addition to these, we will complete the National Strategic Plan for Health and commence in earnest the implementation of our education sector plan. My team, Unity Government, will also continue to seek strategic partnerships to translate these policy frameworks into tangible outcomes that will enhance the productivity and promote economic growth. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report again that we are generating positive growth results in St. Kitts and Nevis. And indeed, the last 3 years, 2015, 2016, and 2017, have provided ample evidence of the positive growth trend. We are on a mission to craft the right set of policies to ensure that the positive growth continues and exceeds the growth level that was or will be attained by the end of 2017. We also intend to continue to build on our good track record in regional and international cooperation, to which we have an unwavering commitment. We believe that a good mix of domestic policies and our active regional and international cooperation efforts would help to improve our nation's chances of achieving success in our pursuit of sustainable development. We will continue to facilitate the ease of registering a business, particularly the small and medium-sized enterprises that are entering the retail trade and professional services. We are happy to report that based on statistics from the Inland Revenue Department, business license issued reach a historic high of over 400 each year under the Team Unity administration. When I asked Mr. Giff what was the cause of that, having looked back at the history and to see we had never crossed the 400 mark, he said to me, "Your government is outdoing itself," and he credits it to the Fresh Start program that has given new life to a large number of businesses, small and of medium and micro-sized businesses. The Ministry of International Trade, Industry and Commerce will, of course, devote more effort to improve the overall ease of doing business in St. Kitts and Nevis. We would hope that the Chamber of Industry and Commerce will work with us on an action plan. We are mindful that there is still the need to boost productivity in both the public and private sector. And in 2018, this will be an area of deep focus for our Human Resource Management Department in collaboration with selected line ministries. I would like to take this opportunity to encourage our partners in the private sector to really take on the challenge of integrating productivity-boosting initiatives as part of their company's strategic plans, with the private sector playing the leading role as the engine of growth in our country. Increasing productivity would be critical to our success in generating higher incomes and raising the standards of living here in the Federation. It is well known that our country does not operate in isolation to the rest of the world, and in this regard, it is timely that I now take a brief look at some recent and regional economic developments of interest. The advanced economies are projected to record an increase in economic activity, expanding by 2.2% in 2017. Economic activity in the USA is projected to grow by 2.2 in 2017. Likewise, economic output in both Canada and Japan are set to achieve growth rate of 3% and 1.5% respectively. Growth in the UK is projected to increase by 1.7 in 2017. And in the Euro area, the expectation is that they would realize a growth of 2.1%. The CDB, in its 2016 economic review and its 2017 forecast, reported that the larger Caribbean community recorded mixed performances. The larger commodity-producing countries were impacted by the slow recovery of commodity prices on the international market, while service-based economies performed better, where tourism and construction continued to expand. In this regard, the economy of Jamaica grew by 1.7 in 2016. Barbados recorded an expansion in output of 1.6, and Trinidad and Tobago recorded a further decline of 5% in 2016. The economies in the ECCU recorded a slowdown in economic output of 2.2 in 2016 when compared to 2.6 in 2015. This was primarily associated with a decline of 7.5% in the manufacturing sector in the sub-region when compared to the 0.8 expansion witnessed in 2015. A contraction in economic output of 2.1 was recorded in the agricultural sector in 2016 after a positive output of 9.5 in 2015. And this decline was as a result of a fall in crop production in most member states of the OECS. The effect of these constructions, however, was stymied. The effect was stymied by expansions in value added in the construction and tourism sectors by 7% and 4.1%, respectively. In 2016, growth within the OECS member states ranged from a contraction of 0.7% to an expansion of activity at 4.3%. Preliminary data for January to June 2017 has indicated that for the ECCU as a whole, we can expect economic growth at 1.5%. Taking a look at our domestic economy, the positive growth momentum of the St. Kitts and Nevis economy continued into 2016 amidst a high level of uncertainty in the global economy. In 2016, our GDP was on par with our own estimates, realizing a 3.2% growth. This, of course, surpassed the average rate for the economic expansion in the ECCU for that year. And this achievement was underscored by the notable performance of wholesale and retail and construction sectors, which increased by 10.3 and 7.6 respectively. The growth momentum was carried in the first half of 2017, as estimates indicate that the economy expanded by 2% for the first 6 months of the year. The growth recorded was attributed mainly to an expansion in the construction sector, which recorded an increase in economic output of 8.8%. The enlargement of the sector was buttressed by private residential construction, coupled with the increased investment by the National Housing Corporation on the construction of low and middle-income homes, dubbed the Unity Housing Solutions. The performance of our economy was also supported by a pickup in the activities in transportation, storage, and communication. These expanded by 7.5%, in line with developments in the tourism sector. The financial intermediation sector recorded an increase of 2.5%, driven by a rise in financial services and an improvement in lending by commercial banks. Of course, in other areas of the OECS, there was a decline in lending by commercial banks. The tourism sector recorded a contraction of 4.3% during the first half of 2017 as a result of downturn in stay-over arrivals. A pickup in the performance of the sector is foreseen with the recent opening of the Park Hyatt, St. Kitts, and the addition of flights by Delta and United Airlines during the peak tourist season. Cruise tourism remained on a positive trajectory, evidenced by a growth rate of 14.4% during the first 6 months of this year. The agricultural sector rebounded in the first half of 2017 as a result of the turnaround in crop production and fish landings. Manufacturing and wholesale retail sector produced less than desirable results. The downturn in the activity in the manufacturing sector was influenced by the decline in the production and export of electronic components as a result of increased uncertainties in the international trade markets, which impacted the demand. Taken as a whole, Mr. Speaker, our economy remains relatively strong, particularly in the face of the effects of Hurricanes Irma and Maria on the productive sectors and supporting infrastructure, which I mentioned earlier. Mr. Speaker, our economy is expected to remain positive for 2017, and the forecast shows an average expansion of 3.5% over the medium term, 2018 to 2020. This sustained level of positive growth is evidence of the strength of the macroeconomic framework and the resilience that my team Unity government is building in the economy. The Consumer Price Index reflected an increase in prices in the Federation by a modest 1.2% in the first half of 2017, in line with the rise in international fuel prices. Importantly, prices for essential goods and service, however, remain low up to June 2017. So, for example, the food and non-beverage index deflated, that is, declined by 2.6% over the period. This is a clear indication that residents here in the Federation continue to enjoy the benefits of the Team Unity policy action to remove VAT on all food items. We paved the path for poor families and persons living on a fixed income to stretch their dollars and realize greater purchasing power. This is evidenced by my administration putting people first by increasing the purchasing power of all citizens, particularly the most vulnerable, to ensure that the quality of life for everyone is improved. Turning to the external account, it is not unusual for small open economies like ours to experience deficits on the current account, that is, their transactions with the rest of the world. We can only address this by greater production and import substitution. That is why in 2018 we will put greater emphasis on the productivity within both public and private sector. The current account widened in 2016 as a direct result of the importation of goods to develop the large number of planned private sector investment projects, some of which are associated with the CBI program. The elevated current account deficit was also influenced by the recent restructuring of the balance of payments accounts using a revised methodology. Despite the widening of the current account deficit in 2016, I am happy to report that our country remains in a very strong position as we have been able to maintain significant amounts of international reserves. We have amassed sufficient reserve to cover the current requirements for goods and services for approximately 7 months, and the international standards are for 3 months. Our performance in this regard has been lauded by the IMF, having led the ECCU as it relates to international reserves accumulation, and thereby giving the Federation a sizable buffer in meeting external demands. This country can easily adduce and conclude then it is being well run. I want to turn to a review of the performance of the country for 2016. It is my pleasure to report to the Honourable House that for the fiscal year 2016, the government fiscal operations once again resulted in surpluses for the 3 main fiscal indicators. Using the IMF economic classification of fiscal data, we achieved the following: a surplus of 121 million on recurrent account, a surplus of 121.1 million on the overall account, and a surplus of 148.5 million noted for the primary balance. Again, we adduce evidence of prudent fiscal management, and the 3 principal accounts used by the IMF and all those reputable institutions engaged in the analysis and the evaluation of the performance of a country, we are doing well. Surplus and recurrent account, surplus and the overall balance, and surplus and primary balance. Again, this is ample evidence of prudent management. Relative to the budget, the recurrent account surplus reflected a favorable variance of 1.6%, positive variances of 43.6 million or 56.2%, and 41.8 million or 39% were observed for the overall and primary balances, respectively, relative to our budget predictions. In other words, they did much better. Recurrent revenue for the fiscal year totaled 633.9 million, and this exceeded the budget by 25.6 million. The outturn reflected the performance of tax revenue, which amounted to 401.2 million, or 63.3% of recurrent revenue, and non-tax revenue totaled 232.7 million, which is about 37% of recurrent revenue. Most of the non-tax revenue was derived from fees associated with the CBI program. When compared to the budget, favorable variances were discovered for taxes and income, and on the taxes on domestic goods and consumption. The revenues and the property tax head did not perform as expected. On the expenditure side, Mr. Speaker, recurrent expenditure amounted to 512.9 million, which was slightly higher than budgeted. The reasons are clear. The variance in transfers was primarily due to the budgetary support given to the Nevis Island administration in 2016. Additionally, the bonus salary that was paid in December 2016 to our civil servant and staff of the state-owned enterprises, as well as our own contribution to the Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation of 1.5 million, all influenced the outturn. Savings were, however, realized on outlays related to goods and services and on the payment of interest, which reflected a positive variance of 6.3%. Mr. Speaker, capital expenditure amounted to $75.6 million for the 2016 fiscal year. This represents a realization of 60% of the capital budget. This was 40.3% less than that which was budgeted. Significant sums were expended in 2016 on the social services sector, where emphasis was placed on projects related to our young people, sports, education, lands and housing, and health. Clearly, people matter most to this government, and the enhancement to the island's economic infrastructure to facilitate an improvement in transportation and water services were also undertaken as part of the government public sector investment program. Approximately 81% of the capital budget for 2016 was financed by government revenue, while about 20%, just under 20%, was funded from grants from donor institutions. To name some of them, the Republic of China has been a very good friend. The SIDF and the Caribbean Development Bank were among those who made significant contribution to projects such as the CPL Games, the upgrade of the Sir Kennedy Simmons Highway, the construction of our National Heroes Park, and other activities under the Basic Needs Trust Fund. In addition to capital grants of $14.7 million, a total of $40.6 million was received in the form of budgetary grants, most of which came as the final tranche under the EU Special Arrangement for Sugar Protocol countries. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn now to some critical areas that would impact upon the economy in 2018. In this regard, I turn to our CBI program. Our Platinum CBI program continues to be an important contributor to non-tax revenue and contributes significantly to the buoyancy of construction and allied industries. In response to an increasingly competitive environment, greater efforts are being undertaken to make the program even more competitive. The substantive reforms, restructuring, and repositioning efforts of my government have allowed our program to emerge as a global leader, receiving highest acclaim by the Financial Times of London and 4 indicators, including the quality of our due diligence. As a recent forum in Russia, our program was ranked as the most innovative program. My government will hold a conference on the CBI in the first half of 2018, and all stakeholders will have an opportunity to discuss the future of the program and how we can make it even greater. In that regard, I want to thank Leskan, who heads our Citizenship by Investment unit, for his outstanding leadership of the program so far, and to thank all the developers, service providers, international market agents who continue to provide loyal support to this program. I want to especially thank Shauna Lake, because she has consistently been one of the many persons who ever so often would send us a note of advice and support. We have not always taken 100% of the advice proffered, but we certainly do welcome that kind of dialogue and the contest of ideas on the way forward. So thank you very much, Shauna. Mr. Speaker, the construction sector has been one of the main pillars of economic development in the domestic economy for several years, contributing an average of 16.3% to GDP over the period 2012 to 2016. As mentioned earlier, in the first half of 2017, construction grew by just under 9%, a direct result of the injection of a significant amount of resources to construct several multi-million-dollar condo, villa, and hotel developments. Some of these developments are the Park Hyatt St. Kitts, which opened for business just last month, Coy, the Hilden Estate, the Tilloff and Radisson, the King's Pavilion Hotel, all of which are being facilitated under the CBI. Construction was, of course, boosted by the entry of the NHC into the housing market, providing more spacious bedrooms, bathrooms, and kitchens for all those with whom it does business. Indeed, people matter most to this government. And so, in addition to the interventions of the NHC, we continue the First-Time Homeowners Initiative, which supported 106 houses for the year to date and therefore boosted the construction sector. The implementation of strong economic and fiscal policies supported by the strength of the fiscal infrastructure is critical to the people-centered sustainable development which we are seeking for. To advance this goal, my government has made a significant headway in formulating a substantial pipeline of projects for infrastructural development. One such development is the construction of the second cruise pier at Port Sante, a project which the Minister of Public Infrastructure would speak at length at when he comes to make his presentation. I am pleased to report that the contract to construct the pier has been signed and the construction will begin shortly, impacting positively on jobs and wages and the socio-economic life of St. Kitts and Nevis. This project then is about people, their well-being, and their welfare and prosperity. The signing ceremony took place and was attended by the high-level official of the Canadian government. Her presence reflected the confidence of the Government of Canada in the viability of the project and the transparent and accountable processes that preceded the signing of the contract. We are equally happy that a number of local institutions have joined together to provide financing in the tune of $47.5 million via a syndicate loan arrangement to make this venture happen. My administration welcomes this formidable partnership of large local entities, which is supported by tangible investment from National Bank, Social Security, SIDF, and TDC. Wonderful things can happen when our institutions come together to serve the best interests of our country. And this is clearly demonstrated in the partnership which has led to the procurement of financing locally for our second cruise pier. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the expansion works related to the pier and the facilitating of upland development to ensure that our cruise visitors receive the best possible experience when they come ashore, SCASPA will be engaging with insignificant works of resurfacing the main runway and 2 taxiways at the Robert L. Bratcher International Airport. I'm advised that this project would pump a further $20 million into the economy. The construction work will be carried out at night to ensure that the regular business at the airport is not disrupted. It is expected that there would be notable efficiency gains in terms of the improvements in the flow of air traffic. Going forward, we plan to invest in other major infrastructural upgrades, most vital of which will be the adaptation work to the carriageway at Old Road Bay, the construction of the East Bus Terminal, and the upgrade of the Island Main Road. All these investments will benefit our people and they will contribute to job creation and the overall economic growth. This government, then, is clearly working energetically for the people. These are the very things that the vast majority of our citizens and residents voted for on the 15th of February 2015. A look at the agricultural sector. We have some good news, and the good news is that overall, agricultural production for the first half of 2017 expanded by 33.9% when compared to the same period in 2016. This robust growth was driven by an increase in the fishing and crop subsectors, which expanded by a whopping 72.6% and 4.3% respectively. How did they do this miracle? The fishing subsector benefited from the continued investment by my government to transform the fishing industry from an artisanal industry to one that is more commercialized. In this regard, 2 mega fishing aggregate devices were deployed during the last quarter of 2016, and they resulted in an increase, a substantial increase, in large pelagic fish landings by more than 200% in the first half of 2017 when compared to 2016. I wish then that my good friend, the Minister of Agriculture, would do a similar exercise at the end of this year so that in 2018 we can get much closer to self-sufficiency in the fisheries products. I'm not too sure where you would have placed these fishing aggregate devices, but you must indicate when you come to speak. I'm sure the Spencer brothers and all the fishers of East Bass there and Sandy Point will be happy to know where to go for their next run in fishing. Mr. Speaker, my team, Unity Government, has long acknowledged the benefits of establishing linkages between agriculture and other sectors. Substantial work has been undertaken to develop a better synergy between agriculture and tourism. And I want in particular to highlight the Park Hyatt St. Kitts, which has expressed its commitment to purchasing all local produce. And they have provided the Department of Agriculture with a list of some 50 products that the hotel would be interested in sourcing locally. This is what we always wanted, to have in St. Kitts something akin or even superior to the Four Seasons model in Nevis, where everything that the farmers can produce, they can have an assured market. A memorandum of understanding has been drafted for consideration as part of the negotiation process to formalize the partnership with the Park Hyatt St. Kitts. And once this process is finalized, the Department of Agriculture will undertake the development of planting schedules for the various commodities. This is again the model in Nevis, where the Department of Agriculture is instrumental in the process of directing production targeted for the Four Seasons hotels. This then provides ample opportunities going forward in 2018 for all of our farmers. And so we hope that this particular project would bear quick fruits, and we want to commend the Department of Agriculture for this partnership. And even as I commend the Park Hyatt for the new ethos, the new approach of involvement of our farmers into the development at the hotel, I want also to thank all other hoteliers, because I'm advised that there is now an increased interest for them to do more. I recall my days as a former Minister of Agriculture and hard talk with the Marriott. I am happy to go there now and to see the Brimstone Hill hot sauce and some other products locally produced that are now there. That is what I wanted way back then. This is what is now happening. And we want to see more of that, more of those things happening. I will allow the Minister of Agriculture, of course, an opportunity to speak about what is happening with the Capistay farm and how we are empowering local farmers, not the state, to become involved in the production and distribution of agricultural produce. Work commenced in March this year to redesign the structure of the Capistay farm to promote a private management structure. And out of that, the lands there which were formerly being managed and developed by the government, in fact, before they came, there was a Dominican connection, truth be told, where a gentleman was leased hundreds of acres of land way out in the country area, rural parts between St. Paul's and Newton Ground. And his job was to bring agricultural produce and to sell them to the neighboring islands. Of course, that project was stillborn. It never bore any fruit. And indeed, after that, the project was restructured into what has become known as the Capistay farm, and the government took over. I recall in one of those discussions in the cabinet, the Attorney General was the one who asked, well, should the state really be involved in a project like that? Isn't there a better wisdom in empowering the local farmers so they take ownership in the production of these commodities and they can have a more successful engagement? At long last, that free legal advice, if you will, has taken root, and his good friend, the member for St. Christopher 8, has taken that on. And I gather as we now speak, some 5 farmers have been allotted lands at the Capistay farm, and 1 farmers group has indicated interest in pursuing crop production at the farm. There is a 4-member committee comprising officers and experts from the Department of Agriculture who are helping in overseeing this. I want this to succeed because this is about putting our people first. This is about recognizing the potential of our people to do well. This is about giving them an opportunity, and rather to go to Dominica to import that talent and that resource, we have found it right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I would want to pay a visit very shortly when things are going, Honorable Minister, so that we can see the transformation that has come. And when we have faith in our citizens, confidence in the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, how far they can go. Mr. Speaker, I want to look briefly at the tourism sector because I know there is a lot going forward about which the Honourable Minister would want to report to the nation. The truth is the tourism plants in both St. Kitts and Nevis are in a state of readiness to welcome guests from near and far. And even after the passage of 2 devastating hurricanes, we were open for legitimate business. The plant suffered minimal damage, notwithstanding the hurricanes. We continue here to develop and leverage events and sports tourism as a means of growing our stayover visitor arrivals in the low season. Further, we expect that our efforts and the investment made by our private sector partners would translate into positive returns for the 2017-2018 tourist season. We continue to build a proud track record in the regional and international tourism market space, which is supported by the implementation of appropriate sustainable product development strategies by key stakeholders in the sector. As a result, the Federation continues to attract high acclaim in top travel magazines and achieve high marks in destination survey rankings. We take pride in the accolades received thus far, and with careful planning, this Team Unity government will continue to reinvent, revitalize, and refine our tourism infrastructure and products. Positive developments continue to be derived from the efforts of the government in improving our major airlift arrangements to enhance the ease of access to our federation, whether it be for work or leisure. During 2017, the Minister advised that United Airlines increase its flights by 50% from Newark Hub and our RLB International Airport. And this will be extended, or has been extended, from winter through summer. In addition, Delta Airlines has announced the addition of a weekly non-stop flight, which will operate on Saturdays to St. Kitts from JFK International, commencing on the 23rd of December 2017. Ideally timed, it would appear, to support the peak tourist season. The airline has also announced the addition of a second weekly non-stop flight for 2 rotations originating from its Atlanta hub. These flights will operate on Wednesdays during the peak holiday season and will commence operation on Tuesdays during the period January 9 to March 27, 2018, complementing the current Saturday direct flight from that city. More flights, of course, means more flights mean more opportunities, more jobs, and more money for our people. This is what we mean when we infuse into the budget theme, putting people first. Mr. Speaker, the good news is that our economy is poised to again further the momentum from a steady flow of high-end, discerning visitors as a result of the wonderful partnership between public and private sector. Just over 2 weeks ago, we witnessed the grand opening of the newest piece of prime real estate that will provide premier accommodation that meet the needs of a discerning group of high net worth travelers. I speak of the Park Hyatt St. Kitts, which has successfully increased our room capacity by an additional 126 luxury rooms. And indeed, we should commend ourselves. We made history here, Mr. Speaker, with the opening of the first Park Hyatt in the Caribbean. Mr. Speaker, my government gave strong support for the successful completion of the Park Hyatt, because at the heart of this development are the benefits for hundreds of Kittitians and Nevisians. During the construction phase, employment peaked in 2017 to a high of 800 persons against its modest start of 5 in February or thereabout of 2014. Now that the hotel is operational, the benefits will be sustained through the direct employment of approximately 320 persons, of which a solid 93% are citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. We are therefore making a better history than the one we inherited for all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I am advised that this group of 320 workers who come primarily from St. Kitts and Nevis, I met persons from Gingerland and Newcastle and elsewhere. Some of them turned out to be my cousins and closer relatives. So it was a good thing that that has happened. They have brought St. Kitts and Nevis even closer. The 320 workers are among the recipients of the highest wages being paid in the tourism industry. And it stands to reason, because as you converse with them, they tell you that they were with Four Seasons, which is top class. Well, I wonder what would entice them to journey over waters, at times troubled waters, to come over to St. Kitts. Apart from the new, nice, loving relationship between the NIA and the federal government, it must be that the pastures are greener at Park Hyatt than it is, perhaps, at Four Seasons. So everybody then will be forced to pay a bit more to hold their staff. The same pattern reflected at the Marriott Hotel. Several of the persons have moved over, and I engaged one lady and said, "Oh, so you are no longer," she served us very well at that seafood restaurant. You took me there, AJ. What is his name? At the far end. The Blue Restaurant. And so I was a bit surprised she was among the more friendly of those providing service there. And when I asked her, "Why did you move?" she said, "I'm getting 3 times more." That is very good. That is what we wish. That is what is meant when we say the rising tide takes everyone up. And so it means that the other entities are going to be pressured, if you will, to pay higher wages to attract good quality staff. The beautiful history then we are creating with respect to stayover tourism is finding expansion elsewhere, because this year we have had perhaps the best performing year for the yachting sector, and this continued to grow. For the first half, I am advised that the expansion was at the rate of 22.5%. So we are grateful for these kinds of development. Of course, we could well speak to the expansion in the cruise tourism, where we will experience a record of 1.2 million passengers for the season. 432 cruise ship calls, including 8 inaugural visits, are expected by the conclusion of the season. An important point that should not go unnoticed is the opportunities that would be created to touch the lives of our residents and citizens. Wide-ranging group, not just the taxi men and the tour operators, but our craft vendors, our hair braiders, the jewelry stores, the restaurants and bars, among a multiplicity of other engagement. We are pleased to have noted that St. Kitts and Nevis was selected by the Caribbean Tourism Association for Excellence in Tourism Award. The official award ceremony is scheduled to be held here in St. Kitts next week at the Marriott Hotel. The event, which was originally scheduled for September this year, was postponed on account of the passage of Hurricane Irma. We recognize that for our tourism product to be sustainable, we must educate and involve our youths. And in an effort to provide the younger generation with knowledge about our heritage and opportunities for employment and business development, several programs are being implemented by the Ministry of Tourism. They include the Tourism Youth Congress, the Tourism Education and Awareness Program that is being piloted in our schools, and the inaugural Green Tourism Summer Workshop. The sustainability of the tourism product remains at the forefront of the development agenda of my government. With pioneering programs such as the Heart of St. Kitts Foundation and the Sustainable Charter, St. Kitts and Nevis already serves as a model of excellence in destination-driven sustainable tourism development, setting the bar high and implementing best practices that are being replicated in other Caribbean islands. Turning to financial intermediation, our financial system has been assessed as being stable and resilient. As at December 2016, the total assets held by the commercial banks totaled $7.1 billion, representing an increase of 1% compared to the same period in 2015. Deposits also grew, and they stand at $4.7 billion, Loans have also increased, and they stand at $1.8 billion. Meanwhile, over the past year, stakeholders in the banking sector have been preoccupied with a number of issues, including the impact and possible solutions for de-risking, change in reporting standards, and credit in the current macroeconomic environment. It is important that the government and the general public remain vigilant in order to preserve the gains that have been achieved in building our strong banking system. My government has remained engaged at the regional and international levels, advocating for the development of lasting solutions to the important issue of de-risking. And I recall my own travels to Toronto, meeting with the high officials of Royal Bank and Scotiabank and the Government of Canada to discuss these particular issues. Mr. Speaker, the member states of the ECCU and the regional institutions, such as the ECSE and the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission, continue to collaborate to develop the money and capital markets within the Eastern Caribbean. As the end of June 2017, there were 131 securities listed on the stock exchange. This comprised of 13 entities with a total market capitalization of $8.2 billion. There were 118 debt securities with a nominal value of 2.9. 5 of the 13 listed companies on the exchange are domiciled in St. Kitts and Nevis, and they include some big names: Cable and Wireless, St. Kitts and Nevis Limited, SL Horsford and Company Limited, our own St. Kitts, Nevis and Gwilla National Bank, the St. Kitts, Nevis and Gwilla Trading Company, more popularly known as TDC, and the Bank of Nevis. Together they represent 38.5% of total equities listing. In other words, in the context of the stock markets and related securities market, St. Kitts and Nevis is punching way ahead of all others. For this is a region with 8 member states. 38.5% of all the equities listed relate to companies domiciled in St. Kitts and Nevis. So you just imagine if we have near 40%, what is happening to the others? Where are the others? So we are doing well. The ICT sector is going to be important, and therefore my government recognizes the vital role of technology in increasing efficiency in the public sector, as well as the resultant need to ensure secure electronic information and data. As a result, a major initiative advanced by the Department of Communications and Technology has been the Information Security and Enhancement Project, which will be built out in 2018. The objective of this project has been to protect against malware and other cyber attacks on the government servers, desktops, and mobile devices. A state-of-the-art security suite was piloted in August of this year, and the upgrade of IT assets throughout the public service is designed to improve device monitoring, and that project, I am advised, is coming near completion. We were heartened by the level of support that this unit has provided to all the ministries of government. For example, they developed a shoppers app of service to the Ministry of Commerce, International Trade. They have developed special apps for those of us who are engaged in security. They have the vehicular registration system. They have assisted us with the Motorola build-out that has impacted more in a better way on the coordination and communications among our security services. The Honorable Attorney General, when he speaks on this aspect of the portfolio will provide greater details. Turning to the micro, small, and medium-sized enterprise development, I want to commend the work of NED, that is the National Entrepreneurial Development Division in the Ministry of Commerce and International Trade, et al. NED is collaborating with Compete Caribbean, a private sector development program, to provide technical assistance, grants, and investment funding to support micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises in a number of countries, of course, including St. Kitts and Nevis. The various dialogues that occurred in 2017 highlighted innovation as a means of increasing competitiveness for this subsector and identified a number of private sector-based development projects that could be supported by Compete Caribbean. I expect the Minister and Member for Number 4 to speak in greater details about this particular aspect of his ministry. Mr. Speaker, the Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis continues to contribute to the overall development of the Federation by helping to advance the agenda for financial inclusion, particularly in the area of access to credit. Over the years, the bank has provided an important conduit for improving access to credit for people who would not ordinarily qualify to access credit to start up or expand their small businesses. As at August 2017, 735 loans with a total of $49 million were approved. During the period January to August 2017, $32 million was allocated to agriculture, industry, and commerce, $8.4 million to personal development, $5.9 million to mortgage financing, and $2.7 million went to educating our people at tertiary level institutions. As of August 31st, 2017, the Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis had a loan portfolio which was significant at $309.2 million, with $109.6 million dedicated to agriculture, industry, and commerce. No wonder then we had that lift in the number of commercial entities that were now reporting through the Inland Revenue Department. Mr. Speaker, an important area which we want to look at is the area of tax transparency and the exchange of information for tax purposes. Only yesterday, we saw going around on the WhatsApp and in more formal media the news that the EU had set out a new EU blacklist. Luckily for us, St. Kitts and Nevis was not part of that. And that didn't happen by accident. I want to thank the professional staff in the Ministry of Finance and in Legal Affairs that has helped us to keep the legal framework in check. The last piece of legislation that we passed in the House had to do with the Common Reporting Standards, Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act, and this provides a legal framework for the automatic exchange of information with selected jurisdictions around the world. I recalled when we brought this suite of legislation to deal with being a responsible member of the international community, we hear noises elsewhere which suggest that we were not doing the right thing, that we were just bringing legislation given by other countries. We were protecting the integrity of the financial space of St. Kitts and Nevis, and that is why we passed the Common Reporting Standards. In addition to the implementation of the Common Reporting Standards, henceforth CRS, the Federation is preparing for the next round of peer reviews by the OECD Global Forum Peer Review. The peer review is expected to be officially launched later this month and will once again examine the Federation's legal and regulatory framework for exchange of information that is requested for tax purposes and the effectiveness of exchanging such information in practice. One new area that is creeping up within the OECD framework of transparency and cooperation in tax matter has to do with the BEPS, base erosion and profit shifting practices. That is the use of tax planning strategies, mostly by multinational companies, to artificially shift profits from the location where the main activities are undertaken to jurisdictions where little or no value is created. This is a practice that is discouraged, as it is believed that companies that function in various jurisdictions and engage in such activities would have a competitive advantage over those entities that operate solely in the local arena. The concern is that the tax liability for those companies that use such strategies would be reduced as a direct result of the BEPS practices, or there may be situations where the entities pay no taxes at all. In other words, the international community is coming concerned that people may set up a company in any jurisdiction while they do no real activity of economic substance in those jurisdictions. They use those as a part of protective mechanism. This is not an area in which we are encouraged to be involved, but we are only a small island state, and we have to look at the consequences for non-participation. Nonetheless, I am sure that those who are leading the technical advice in this matter would prepare robust arguments with respect to this. And we would rely upon the expertise which we have already developed both in St. Kitts and in Nevis to marshal the arguments for some reprieve, perhaps, if possible, in relation to this matter. Because this is going to discourage companies from setting up in offshore jurisdictions. So it is a mixed bag. If you don't cooperate, you become blacklisted. That is a penalty that they now hold over you. And that has important consequences for your ability to be able to participate in the international financial space. So it is a delicate balance in which we are engaged, and we will cross that bridge sooner rather than later. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn briefly to the matter of energy and water. This is a critical area. And of course, the cost of energy impacts significantly on the quality of life for people everywhere, St. Kitts and Nevis being no exception. Our goal in this regard is to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis is a front runner in the integration of renewable and energy efficient technology. And so far we have done a good job in terms of the development of the relevant policy and legislative framework to support this transition. We now have to move from policy to action. In this regard, we are doing quite a bit of work with support from the Caribbean Development Bank, and we want to commend some of the new initiatives that are being undertaken by SCELEC, which the Minister of Public Infrastructure will get into some details about. To say we continue to be serious about the efforts at geothermal, and I want to commend the work in Nevis by the Nevis Island Administration in bringing back to life the geothermal project in that country. And we are hoping that that will bear fruits in the not too distant future for the good of the island of Nevis and for the good of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, SCELEC is doing some upgrading, and it has procured two megawatt generators to improve the reliability of the supply to residents, particularly during the periods when segments of the plant are taken offline for maintenance. The experience of Hurricanes Irma and Maria have led us to the view that Skelec needs to expand its fuel storage capacity from 10 days to 20 days. And for 2018, we are going to be doubling up on the storage capacity. This, of course, would mean that if we are out, our ports are made operational for any extended period of time, at least for 20 days, the Skelec would have an adequate supply of fuel to meet the needs of the customers. So this is about our energy security, and we are very much supportive of this. There are other works being done in relation to the distribution line. Work, for example, is scheduled to be undertaken on the substation between St. Paul's and Newton Ground to facilitate the ease of delivery of electricity to both Kearn and Sandy Point feeders. This upgrade will allow for a timely restoration of power to either side of the island when outages occur. Clearly, this government cares, and the energy security of our people matters to us. We have some good news in relation to water. From a prolonged period of drought and inadequacy in terms of water availability, we have had significant improvements, thanks to God, for better supply of rainfall. But also, the Minister would announce that through the instrumentality of beads, we now have the prospects of an addition of 1.5 million gallons of water per day being added to the national supply. So this is very good news for us, and we want to commend the Water Department and all the partners there, including Ocean Earth Technologies, for their support in the provision of this critical resource. Mr. Speaker, I turn to the area of social development, and without a doubt, many of our vulnerable households are today reaping the invaluable benefits of significant socioeconomic development milestones achieved since our independence over 30 years plus ago. Notwithstanding the progress we have made in alleviating poverty and the advancement in living standards, there is much work to be done to lift more of our people out of a state of poverty and indigence. My team, Unity Government, remains steadfast in our commitment to improve the design, the implementation, the monitoring and evaluation of its social and economic policies and programs. This must be done to enhance living conditions and enhance the full potential of our most vulnerable people. This is in keeping with the Sustainable Development Goals under the post-2015 Development Agenda's theme, Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Given the multidimensional nature of poverty, the enhanced country poverty assessment is being implemented using the CDB model, and this comprises of some 4 key components: the survey of living conditions, household budget, the participatory poverty assessment, the institutional assessment, and the macro-social and economic assessment. I am highlighting this important initiative for 2 main reasons. For one thing, it helps to drive home the point that this government cares about helping people, especially the less fortunate citizens. The true sustainability of our country can only be safeguarded if all of our people enjoy a decent standard of living. Equally important is that it helps to demonstrate the fact that this government is committed to developing policies based on the facts derived from scientific data. When the minister with responsibility for social development comes, she will speak in more detail regarding some of these programs that we have implemented to better help our people to live richer and more empowering lives. The challenge of poverty will be with us for a while. There are a lot of books that have been written regarding the persistence of poverty, and having regard to our history of being out in the periphery, our own history of landlessness in the Caribbean region, our own history of slavery, and all the negative attributes. It will certainly take time for us to get where we really would like to be. But we are reminded of the wisdom of one Pope: the poor cannot wait. And that is why this government is hastening to bring into being a number of social programs that would help the poor in our society. I am advised that we have witnessed a record of 15 centenarians for this year. And this, I am advised, is the first time in history that we are recording this high number of centenarians. I want to commend them and to wish them well, and hope that the policies of the government will help them to live improved lives. I want to commend the work of the community development with the renovation works at the Sadler's Home for the elderly, and to advise that in 2018, this government will open an extension of the Cardin Home in the Sandy Point area. The Cardin Home has played a critical role since 1927 as the bedrock of public-led elderly care. It is now filled to its seams, filled to capacity, and we have determined to utilize an existing building in Sandy Point to provide for additional services to the elderly in that part of the country. The anticipated extension of the Cardin Home service and the renovation of the Sadler's Elderly Home undertaken this year are sound testament of the government's vision to eliminate barriers to achieving the longevity dividend, which is the invaluable social and economic contributions that healthy senior citizens make to a country's development. We congratulate the management and staff of the Cardin Home on the achievement of its 90th anniversary milestone in May of this year. The matter of skills and human development is at the heart of our development trust, and my government has sought to modernize the learning experience for all citizens and residents here. Hence, in 2017, we approved the new educational sector plan, which will take us from 2017 to 2021. Education for all, embracing change, securing the future, is the theme of that new education sector plan, which links and builds upon some of the initiatives prior to it, but at the same time add to the better educational requirements which we must offer to our people in a modern St. Kitts and Nevis. We are going to be paying special attention to technical and vocational education and training program, and in particular to certification. And when the Honorable Minister of Education comes, he will, in fact, have more to say in relation to the education sector. The matter of health was captured well by Winston Churchill. Healthy citizens are the greatest asset that any country can have. So says the late, great Winston Churchill. The importance of health care becomes even more profound when one considers the fact that health is not just the absence of an illness, but rather a state of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Without good health, we would not be able to make meaningful contributions to nation building and live fulfilling lives. Cognizant of these sobering facts, my administration is committed to accelerate in our efforts to safeguard the health of all citizens and residents, which would yield dividends in our pursuit of sustainable development. For 2018, we are going to pay particular attention to non-communicable diseases. They have been the heart at the fatality rate in the country. 83% of all deaths in the Federation has been associated with NDCs. And NDCs, of course, represent a great threat to productivity in our country, and so we want to tackle this matter frontally. There are 4 NCDs of primary focus to the administration at this time: cardiovascular diseases, cancer, chronic respiratory diseases, and diabetes. These are the largest contributors to the morbidity and mortality rates in the Federation. And so we are going to pay attention to these and to the associated behavioral risk factors, which include tobacco use, unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, and the harmful use of alcohol. All these programs you will hear more about as we begin the implementation of these projects. For 2018, we bring good news to the people of Bellevue, Tabernacle, Mansions, and all the communities who had long been deprived of adequate primary health delivery there as a result of the fact that in January 2014, a decision was taken to relocate the Tabernacle Health Center in the basement of the Tabernacle Daycare Center. What that bad decision did was that it damaged 2 critical areas. It damaged the provision of community primary health care services, and at the same time, it took up the well-needed space that was required by the young people in the pursuit of their educational development. So health was shortchanged. Education was shortchanged. Thanks to Team Unity, this matter will now be addressed in 2018. Indeed, the works have already been started to get this health center up and ready in 2018. The Minister of Health, of course, will speak more about this. And I want, though, before moving from the matter of health, to commend our country for being among the 6 countries which last week was certified for having eliminated the transmission of mother-to-child HIV, the transmission of HIV from mother to children. It is an amazing achievement. And syphilis, congenital syphilis. It is an amazing achievement. And I want to commend all the health practitioners, all the institutions that have played a role in getting us to this point where that ceremony took place at Marriott. And in a way, it was the PAHO and WHO's way of coming to commend St. Kitts and Nevis for its leadership and support in this particular area. And so I commend everyone and hope that having achieved that particular milestone, we will continue to do excellent work. So by the target date of 2030, we can in fact bring an end to AIDS in St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, the housing and human settlement sector I've touched on before, except to say that we continue apace to bring housing solutions to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I know the Minister of Housing would want to bring the good news in terms of the accomplishment. But I could say, suffice it, that to date, this government has provided 784 housing solutions in St. Kitts and Nevis. 241 houses either completed or at various stages of completion by the NHC. Over 300 mortgages being supported under the First-Time Homeowners Program. 43 being provided through collaboration between the NHC and the National Bank. And of course, over 200 persons being assisted with renovations and upgrade through the HELP program. So we are moving very well in that regard, keeping the people in focus because people matter more. And we are happy to be able to do that. The Honorable Minister delights in talking about the expanded size of the Team Unity Housing Solutions, larger bedrooms, larger bathrooms, because we are concerned about human dignity. We are concerned that our people have genuine access to quality and affordable homes. I am pleased, as the Minister of National Security, to commend the law enforcement officers for their work in this particular area. And the national community, of course, will join me in thanking all our security officers for the successes that have been achieved so far and for the significant reduction in some of the major crimes that have happened in our country, particularly homicides and other areas in which we have seen significant reduction in crime. There is still a lot of work to be done, but what is important is that we are moving in the right direction. And that has come after significant investment by this administration. In 2015, we provided what was then the largest budget to the national security portfolio. In 2016, we outdid ourselves, providing then what had become the largest budgetary allocation. And in 2017 for 2018, we are again surpassing that by about 5%. Therefore, we can say that there is no dearth of support or political will and action when it comes to ensure the peace and security of our country. In 2017, the government made investment, for example, in acquiring a new fire tender. And I was surprised to learn that these things are very, very expensive. Well over $500,000 was expended to get what we call one fire truck into the country. So there's a significant cost to this. I want to thank our partners in the Republic of China and Taiwan that has been supporting us in the build-out of our CCTV program. We are expecting very shortly to move into some of the hotspots, Keyon, Sandy Point, and Nevis, as we come to phase 2 and 3 of this important initiative. I, of course, want to thank those in the Defense Force and elsewhere for working in collaboration with the police officers to bring the calm and quiet which the country and people rightfully deserve. Mr. Speaker, having regard to some of the legacy problems which we inherited, we have had to bring closure to the police station in St. Paul's and Newcastle. Nonetheless, the government has ensured that through improved mobile presence, the communities are well served. In 2018, we will move ahead to provide a brand new police station for the Sandy Point area, Mr. Speaker. And in 2018, we will advance work in relation to the new correctional facility in the Estridge Estate. We expect then to provide improved environment in which work can be done, and those who will have to use this facility can have their dignity protected. One aspect of our response to the inheritance of a highly unacceptable level of criminal activity in the country has been to have some social interventions being undertaken by the Ministry of National Security. And I know this aspect of it has been very dear to the heart of the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Osmond Petty, and I commend him for his interest in that. I want to commend the formation of the Mulfield Explorers, a group of over 100 young persons from the communities of Molyneux and Phillips between the ages of 5 to 19. These young persons will be engaged in community development and social and educational activities. That group is being replicated in Shadwell, and we expect before year-end to have a further replication of this in St. Paul's. St. Paul's has become a hotbed for criminal activity, and all of us have to bring our collective energies to ensure that we have peace and stability in that neighborhood and in all the neighborhoods that have been identified as crime hotspots. And that is why we will move to attempt in the build-out of the CCTV program to quickly get to St. Paul's so that we could have the deterrent effect. We are concerned about the loss of lives anywhere in the Federation, and we want to bring an end to this unfortunate development.